Hello, everyone, and welcome to Weekly Manga Recap here on the 3rd of January, 2018. We made it through another lap around the sun. Good job, everybody. And we're all here now to talk about the last year of manga.
The last year. There's never going to be any more manga from here, guys. This was it. We got to the very end of every year of manga now.
Yeah. So will be the last episode of Weekly Manga Recap. Mm-hmm. We will not see you next week. Yeah.
I'm going to be on the new version of Hollywood Squares.
Oh.
It's going to be me and several other extremely minor YouTube celebrities. So, yeah, it's going to be pretty cool.
Have they told you what square you're going to be in yet?
I'm going to be top middle. So I'm an active square. That's an active one. You gotta
really?
make sure you gotta make sure you pay attention to it. You know. Plus,
you think that the corners would be the most coveted after the center.
Oh, Nick, I do a manga podcast online. I'm not that big. They gotta save that for the big name talents that are going to be on the show. Okay. They can't just throw that away to every manga podcast that tries to get on Hollywood Squares.
You just make those like lame jokes that all the Hollywood Squares people make whenever they're asked a question, but they're all like manga jokes, and everyone's like, huh?
I'm trying to remember.
Except for one person in the audience who's cracking the hell up.
I'm trying to remember if it was Family Guy or maybe it was Simpsons that did that joke one time, where it's just like, am I supposed to read from the joke answer first or the real answer first?
Okay, so there is no regular manga this week because of the holidays and such in Japan. So we are going to be focusing on just going over like stuff that we've done, basically stuff we've talked about, what we liked, what we didn't like, and yeah. So there's a number of different ways we could start this, I guess. I don't know if we actually have a set pattern in which we do things, honestly.
Well, the superlatives, this is the first year we've had like a full category up for all of them, so we'll have that.
We had trophies. We had trophies made, which you guys aren't going to get to see. I mean, only those awarded get to see them. So,
exactly. Actually, no, hold on. Our trophies this year, every winner will get one of these sultry Nami figurine where she's seductively pulling her shirt up. You can't see it too well because of the glare, but you get the idea. Everyone will get one of these.
Just look at those complete lack of ribs. Anyone will want that.
Exactly. Yeah. And you can get this if you come to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, to my home, and collect this to all the manga creators that are out there.
Oda shows up.
He's like, give me the doll. I'm like,
don't you get a bunch of these for free?
Yeah, I was like, isn't this just like a picture of your wife at this point?
Oh, boy.
All right, so we want to start off maybe with our recommendations that you took in 2017?
Yes, sure, let's do that. We took a total of 18 recommendations this year. So a little under 3 weeks per recommendation that we took. Got some good long discussions in there. This is an interesting year for our recommendations because we had some normal ones. We, had our Halloween ones. We continued the now a tradition of Sadistic September. But there were also a few that we tried out, especially early in the year, that were catching up on series that we were considering adding to the regular lineup. So there's probably going to be fewer of the, oh, yeah, I remember when you guys talked about that than before, because instead a few of them are just going to be, oh, yeah, you guys started doing that this year. Right. OK. Yeah, amazingly, Chris, we read the 7 Deadly Sins this year. Did you know that?
Yeah, well, some people might not remember that those were recommendations too. Mm-hmm. We were looking to see if we take them in full time.
Yes. But our first recommendation of the year was Welcome to the Ballroom, the dancing manga that had odd art, but we ended up kind of coming away liking.
This is one of the most interesting ones to me because at the start of the year, this was, I think, the first one we did, as you said, and we both really enjoyed it. And I think we both at the time said, like, man, this is definitely going to be like the Yuri on Ice. Like, when this gets the manga or anime adaptation, people are going to go crazy for it. And that's not what happened at all.
Nope.
The series has been very harshly kind of criticized, especially by I can't remember if it's solely just for its representation of women or if there's other things too. I thought I heard it's
Oh,
kinda
it's
like
also hideously ugly looking.
yeah, there's
the
that.
art did not translate well into animation.
I thought I also heard there's definitely like some very weird kind of derogatory thoughts it kind of puts forward towards like LGBT like elements, like the boy love element is something that it seems like the creators definitely were like, we don't want this or something like that. I haven't watched the anime and I kind of want to watch it and also go back to series because I remember loving Welcome to the Ballroom. I thought, man, this is a really good series, but maybe I just missed those things. And if that's the case, I want to go back and kind of like see where I missed that because it definitely feels like that's something I should have called more attention to. But maybe, I don't know, maybe it's just something that skipped by me or I don't know. But that was definitely one that I thought people were going to be all over, and then it turns out no, it was not the case.
Well, if it was just something that you missed, then I missed it too. So I think that it was probably just a matter of in the adaptation, some things were emphasized a little bit more than they would have been originally, and as a result of that, it came off wrong. Then after that, we did Astra Lost in Space, a recommendation that we had Annalise on for.
Yes.
And it was a series that we both really ended up liking, so we added to our recap. And next week, we're going to be talking about the very last chapter of the series.
Yes. Good series.
Then we did Pokemon Adventures Ruby and Sapphire, which is one of my favorite parts of that manga. I forget how that discussion ended up going.
I think we both really liked it. It was.
I mean, I really liked it. But...
Yeah, well, I think we had a long discussion on that one in regards to, just the protagonists were both really interesting. The way they followed very different paths, but still kind of carried through that stuff. And we got like the touches of like a little bit of just like a well kind of told story that I think we both really enjoyed. This was the continuation, by the way, of our JoJo's Bizarre Pokemon Adventure, which is where we both take turns recommending JoJo or Pokemon Adventure to help catch the other one up on the parts they've missed.
We're gonna have to do another Pokemon part fairly soon. It's been almost a year since the last one. Then we did the Seven Deadly Sins, another one that this was mostly just for me to catch up, really.
It was for me to catch up a lot too, because I had stopped reading the series.
Stopped it, yeah.
I stopped reading, I think, right around the time the Ten Commandments showed up. That's why I stopped recapping it, I think.
And it was a good one, and then we added it to our recap. So yeah. Blue Exorcist was also one that we were considering for adding to the recap, and it wasn't that we didn't like it. It was that it was all right. Yeah, it was pretty good, man.
It was okay. It was very solid. That was the easiest way to kind of explain it, and unfortunately, very solid didn't necessarily translate all that well. We both enjoyed Seven Deadly Sins a lot, and we also enjoyed Astra Lost in Space a lot. We only had so many space we could really put more series in. So Blue Exorcist was one that I think we both enjoyed, but neither of us particularly loved.
And we covered Haikyuu, which is, of course, the very popular volleyball manga. One that I think that you really, really, really love.
I still pick up the volumes as they come out and read through it. It is an excellent series.
Then, because we were having too much positivity in our lives up to that point, we decided to do something very different, which was the very, very, very short-lived comic, Incarnate by Nick Simmons, which was flabbergastingly bad, honestly. That was definitely our first, this was bad manga of the year. And bad for so many different reasons, honestly. But I think that we had a good time discussing it, at least. So.
No, yeah. I mean, it was that was one of the more interesting, I think, discussions we got at, too. Because it was one that I think on the onset people expected us to just hate. just shit all over it. But I think it's when we kind of both were like, hey, look, I was 20 years old at one point too. I would have written some pretty poor shit too if my family, if my mom hadn't been a social worker her entire life and instead was a rock star and I had that money essentially. I think that would have definitely been something I could have done as well.
Then, in order to kind of catch ourselves up, in order to prepare for the upcoming Netflix special, Death Note, we went back and we took a fresh look at the manga. I think that was one of my favorite let's revisit this reviews that we've done, because it was definitely something that I had a different perspective on going through this time than I did when I first encountered it 10 years ago.
I think I enjoyed it because I can't remember. I feel like it was this one, but somewhere along the lines, around the time we reviewed this, I think it was the first time we got a comment on a YouTube video that called us cucks. And I was like, finally! I feel like we're not initiated to the internet if someone doesn't do this.
Why did they do that? They just disagree with our opinion on something?
Well, I think we had some pretty strong thoughts on the misogyny in the series, so it was a lot of like, oh, look at these liberal cucks over here.
Yeah, fair enough.
Hey, you got us there, I guess.
Then we did Tomo-chan wa Ononoko, the series about a tomboy and her comedic adventures and her love for her best friend. That was one that we both really, I think, were surprised in how positive we came away from it, because it was, a comedy romance 4-panel series. And it was like, oh, this was actually really funny. So
it was until you mentioned it, though. Completely forgot we discussed it. There's always a couple of those, and it's usually series that have like very Japanese names like that one that don't have like an easy or commonly understood anglicized title. So yeah, that definitely fell into that thing. I'm like, oh yeah, I guess we did talk about that.
Then, as part of Fairy Tale Month, we covered Rave Master, Hero's previous series. I still have struggled to remember anything from it, though, honestly, except for the theme song. That was never going away.
The world of a land conquered by evil.
With a Karen-nosed dog.
I think the one thing I remember, if only because I had to see the clip a couple times, is me getting really angry about Dashiko, the sun thing, and just be like, what is it? And
what is it?
I slammed a piece of a pen through a thing. I was like, I don't know what it is. It's just this. It just hangs out in the wall. When did it get there? It was a good time, though. I enjoyed going back through Rave Master.
Then we did Akunohana, Flowers of Evil. That was a trip.
that to me, that was one of the favorite recommendations I think we've ever done. Not necessarily because I think that manga is necessarily one of the best ones we've ever reviewed, but that was one of the few times I feel like we really got into the symbolism of the series and a statement of what it is. I think it's the first time we've reviewed a very artistic manga and gave it
certainly in a while.
Yeah, I think it also we gave it because I look back to Ada Maretsu or something like that, the Magician series, but was all one of those long top to bottom kind of series that we read. It was a very artistic series, but I think it was hard for us to maybe get all of what it was about, at least for myself. With Akanohana, it was the first time I ever reviewed one of those things. I was like, I think I'm getting what this is all, kind of what the deal of this is. So I enjoy talking about that series a lot because it was interesting to discuss the themes of and everything else.
And for Sadistic September, we did The Prince of Tennis.
Classic, best series of the year.
Which hopefully will let me put that behind me for good. Until someone convinces us that we need to do new Prince of Tennis. Then it was October, so for Halloween month, we did Alien 9 about the grade schoolers who have symbionts that need to fight aliens. Fort of Apocalypse, the first of our zombie apocalypse series. We covered quite a few of them. This one being about the juvenile delinquents having to make their way through a zombie apocalypse that got really weird at the end. Biohazard Heavenly Islands, the Resident Evil spin-off, where it took place during a reality show where bikini models were going to compete against each other.
It was a very plot centric element. You really couldn't have done that show without it, or that manga without it.
No, not without the boobs. And then lastly, School Live, the series about the high school girls who had a much more psychological kind of zombie apocalypse series. And we did JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Diamond's Unbreakable, which I ended up coming out of agreeing with you that it was the best of the JoJo series, at least so far. And lastly, Kengan Ashwa, which was, this was a fun fighting game style series. It was very simple, but a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think by and large, I think we reviewed. I mean, it helps that also we reviewed a lot of series that were like recommendations for series to start reviewing in the magazine, like in our regular recap, or there were a couple that we like did repeats on. So I think by and large, we didn't have too many terrible series or things like that this year. There wasn't like a freezing or anything. You know, I think the worst probably would be Prince of Tennis, and that was something we went into knowing it would be bad. We did specifically because it was bad with the Sadistic September. But outside of that, like even listening to it, I was like, there's not too many on there that I was like, oh man, that was a garbage series. Can't believe we reviewed that.
I kind of took a break after last year. I was specifically like, guys, send us bad series.
We'll see. Maybe this year we'll get into some more kind of obtuse recommendations, things like that, and have some interesting discussions about that. What would be your favorite recommendation of 2017 then?
So I have 3 picked out here. Number 3, Kengan Ashwa. Oh. It's very simple but very fun. I specifically avoided the ones that I was like already familiar with when I was choosing my favorites, because it would be too easy to go. It's like, Astra, Pokemon, just stuff that I already knew was going to be good. Second was School Live. I was honestly very surprised by how good and effective it was. And then Tomo-chan, which is one that I still go back to occasionally to check for new chapters. I really, really enjoyed it and find it to be very entertaining. I remembered it.
Yeah. I remember being good. I'll just say I didn't write down the top 3 or anything like that, just because there weren't too many series that we did this year. But I will say of all of them, just as like sort of a repeat of saying it, but Haikyuu is one of my favorite series I've read in recent years. It is just a utterly enjoyable series with a ton of just like utterly compelling scenes. If you like sports manga, you owe it to yourself to read Haikyuu. It's just a fantastically paced series with a ton of great dramatic moments and inspiring adages as well to really like hype you up. If you ever need like a series to read while you're like getting ready to run a marathon or something like that, I feel like Haikyuu would be the one to read. It's a great series for that sort of attitude.
All right. So least favorites.
I mean, I guess by nature it would probably be either Prince of Tennis or Incarnate. There really wasn't like a gap between, like there's not too many bad series.
Those are my bottom 2, in exactly the order you think they are. Number 3 on the bad was I put down Fort of Apocalypse.
Yeah, that wasn't a great one.
When I was going through, our episodes this year and to note down the recommendations that we took, at every single one, I was like, okay, yeah, I remember that. Yeah, okay, yeah, I remember that. Then I got to Fort of Apocalypse, and I was like, okay, yeah, that's the one, yeah, with the schoolgirls and the zombie apocalypse, right? And then 2 later, it's like School Live. Wait, no, that's the one with the schoolgirls and the apocalypse. Oh, Fort of Apocalypse was the other one. So I had completely forgotten what the series actually was. It had completely slipped my mind. It was just so forgettable. And this was 2 months ago, almost 3 months ago. But the only other one I struggled at all to think of what my opinion on it had been was Welcome to the Ballroom, and that was the very first one we took, and it's been kind of muddled by all the negative reaction over the anime. Every single other recommendation, I immediately remembered, this is what happened, this is what we felt about it. Mm-hmm. And that one is what the. Did I like that one or didn't I? So it's just so forgettable, and that's why it's in the bottom 3 for me.
Nah, and I can understand that. But hey, we're gonna look forward to, I think, some cool recommendations in 2018. We already have a different sort of series with Komi-san, so I'm looking forward to it. Nick, do you want to try to guess and remember where manga we read were at the beginning of this year?
I'm ready.
All right. So there are a couple series that we recap that already began within this year. So Dr. Stone and We Never Learned began within 2017. So
right. So
2
out of 2.
There you go. Black Clover, Nick. Where do you think Black Clover was at the start of 2017?
Well, a few of these are going to be easier because when I compiled the results for the MVPs, I saw who the MVPs that we named were at the start of the year. So that kind of tipped me off a little bit and refreshed my memory. This is one of them because early on in the year we had Annalise on and she picked Ladros. So I am guessing that it is during the arc when they were in the Witch's Forest, that whole thing where they went in order to get the blood cure thing for Asta.
Yes, that's around where they were. Specifically, though, where we were at the start of this year was Asta and Mars banding together to fight Fauna when she was going out of control. So this is actually a little bit before Ladros really was a relevant factor. He showed up afterwards to basically, I think, suck up her power and kind of gain stronger off of that. So this is right before that. This is before Fauna had managed to break free of her mind control and become a hero again. So this is just a little bit before that. But yeah, that's basically right around where we were. We had that, obviously, then the end of the whole Witch's Forest arc and some other elements of that'll come up during the Superlative Awards. Then basically we spent there was the sort of mini arc of them training in the lava world.
Before that there was the point ceremony.
Yes, there was the point ceremony that led into the mana skin training that then led into the tournament arc, the Royal Knight selection ceremony or tournament, whatever you want to call it. That basically took the entirety of the rest of the year.
Yeah, because that tournament took up half a year.
So it's Black Clover, I think, had a pretty productive year, which makes sense. It's a series that has a pretty fast pace to it. But yeah, that's where we were. We were finishing up the whole Witch's Forest arc, and then moving on. Moving on from there. Fairy Tail, Nick. Fairy Tail ended within this year, but where was Fairy Tail at the start of 2017? And Fairy Tail's a tough one because that is a series with a lightning fast pace. So you're like, I don't know. Had they rescued Makarov yet from the fucking other country? Who knows?
Well, we had the whole thing with Zareth. The whole thing about August, why did the Emperor never love his son? That happened this year. I think it was around the time that they had the fight with Irene.
You're right on it. It was the first chapter that we reviewed of 2017 was the one with Irene's backstory. That started with her revealing that she was a dragon and she was the queen of dragons, and that entire thing with her and Wendy, where she took over Wendy's body for a period of time.
Oh yeah, that happened.
Can't forget that.
Now I'm going to act all sexy in a 12-year-old's body because Fairy Tail.
Because that's what we do here. Fairy Tail was an interesting series, I think, this year, particularly because there was a lot kind of going on. But it was interesting, I think, to me more than anything else, because for the first time we kind of got less in Fairy Tail. There was a lot more time sort of spent on the conclusion and moving towards that than Fairy Tail, which tended to be like, all right, let's have these three characters do their thing. It was a lot less quick than the pace had been for Fairy Tail usually. So it's interesting kind of out there. Food Wars, Nick. Where do you think Food Wars was at the start of 2017?
It's difficult because this whole thing with the Battle of Central has been going on for so long. I want to say it would have been... Well, let's see. For Weekly Manga Recap Lives, we did a February chapter, and that was the setup for the Team Shokugeki. So I'm guessing it must have been towards the end of Soma's Shokugeki against Hayama.
It's a little bit beyond that. The chapter we began with was the flashback of Jorichiro that explained his involvement and how he was supposed to do the big tournament or whatever and just didn't show up from that after Burnout. So that was a little bit before the stuff that we did on Weekly Manga Recap Lives. This is sort of that point when I think Food Wars hadn't been doing very well in the rankings, so they thought all right, let's bring in Jorichiro, let's have his flashback, let's give details about him, let's put a popular character back in the series, and then go from there.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Food Wars was an interesting series this year. It's been very up and down.
Definitely.
It's been entirely focused, for the most part, in this Team Shokugeki that has encompassed most of this year and looks to be encompassing at least a good portion of next year as well, since we could have at least one more round, potentially two more, to get through. And these chapters, these battles individually within them take 3 to 4 weeks themselves. So, we could have 3 or 4 more months of just this Team Shokugeki before we even get a conclusion. And as I said, it's been up and down throughout this year. We've had some fights that have been great, and some where just been for the love of God, fucking move on. So.
Thank God for those early matches where they just beat 2 of the members of the Central off screen,
including the new 5th seat on the council who just got blasted off screen,
obliterated.
All right. Where was My Hero Academia at the start of last year now?
Okay. So a good chunk of this has been the mission to save Eri from Chisaki. Prior to that, they would have had the hero license exams, the provisional hero license exams. But I also distinctly remember at the beginning of the year that Mirio was really big. So I think that it was around the time that the big 3 were introduced.
A little bit. You're close and also very far away.
Oh, okay.
The hero licensing exam actually happened 2016.
Okay.
That had already completed at this point. The chapter that started this year actually was after the fight with Bakugo and Deku. It was when All Might revealed the secret of All for One to Bakugo. But the very end of that chapter teased the appearance of the big 3, teased their introduction. Okay. So that's where we were at the very start. But the end of last year and the start of 2017, that was that whole big Bakugo-Deku fight where they two kind of had a mutual understanding of one another's ideals of what it means to be a hero. And then had that big kind of uniting of ideals underneath All Might. So yeah, it was a very, very, very big year with My Hero, but not a whole lot of different things.
Well, no, because I thought that the license exam actually happened this year, but if it didn't, then that means that the only really important events were the stuff that took place trying to defeat the Shinya Hasakai.
There was also all the stuff with Sir Night-Eye. There was also a bit of sort of a period of time where they spent training with Mirio. There was that team fight against him where he just schooled the entirety of Class 1A basically outside of Bakugo and Todoroki. So there were small bits here and there that gave some focus on things. But yeah, the majority of this year was spent with the Hasakai stuff. I think this wouldn't have been the year that we had the stuff with Overhaul showing up and killing Magna and things like that. I think that would have been last year.
Yeah, I think so.
So yeah, there wasn't a whole lot of different stuff going on, but this was still a pretty productive year for My Hero. This is also, I guess, the main year or I think it's the end of the first like huge arc, I think, in My Hero. This is like, sort of like their Namek arc or something like that, I guess you could say. Like that big, huge arc finally having like a conclusion. A lot of other stuff have been like kind of build-ups. All right. Promised Neverland. Nick, do you remember where the Promised Neverland was at the start of 2017?
Well, looking back, honestly, I was actually trying to think of this earlier because I was thinking to myself, like, actually, God, it feels like it's been years since anything important has happened in Promised Neverland up until we got this new arc starting. But it was really just a few months ago that they left the Gracefield house, about half a year in or something. And that it just feels like it took forever to get through the last 5 months because nothing really exceptional has happened. Mm-hmm. So it would have had to be pretty early on. It would have been well before Emma and Ray escaped. I think that it would have been, gosh, I'm going to say it was around the time that, no, it would have been a little bit after that. I'm going to say that it was around the time that they were forming their alliance with Crone.
It's a little bit... It's actually, for the most part, you nailed it right on the head. The chapter that began this year was Crone's backstory that showed kind of what it was all about for her to get to this point and her aligning herself with the kids. And then shortly thereafter, I believe, is when she dies. Because that was one of the first, like, sort of big moments we had at the end of this, you know, like on our Superlative Awards. A lot of stuff about Crone that's, like, towards the top of those picks because she died pretty early on in the year. But it was right around that time, yeah, she formed an alliance with the kids, and that was sort of the big start to things. You mentioned, you kind of hit it on the head when you mentioned it's tough to remember that a lot of stuff happened in Promised Neverland this year, because there was a point where we were just like, shit, this is still, like, there are, like, you know, you think that them escaping Gracefield was like a year or two ago, but they didn't escape until part of the way through this year, and then there was just a big stretch of not a whole lot happening. Mm-hmm. But it's tough to remember that all that stuff of them escaping Gracefield House was like a sequence of us being like, this is some of the greatest stuff we've read. Like, this is amazing. This is fantastic. There was a lot of just great standout chapters in that group. And it's tough to remember the kind of quality the Promised Neverland had over the year when there was like just this weird dead spot in the middle where there wasn't a whole lot happening. Mm-hmm. We shall see. And then finally, Nick, One Piece. That's the last of the series, really, that we recapped that had a big thing. Where was One Piece at the start of 2017?
I can't tell you exactly.
Okay.
But I know that it was around the time that basically everything was going wrong for the Straw Hats. Luffy and Nami were captured. Brook had his confrontation with Big Mom a little ways in and got captured there. Pudding had like just revealed herself, what her true identity and nature was, and broken Sanji's heart by revealing that she, you know, just wanted to kill him. So I really can't pinpoint the exact moment. I just remember it was like everything was bad.
You actually basically did pinpoint it there. The first chapter of 2017 was Sanji basically reacting to the fact that he just discovered Pudding's deception of him. It was her kind of finishing up some of that explanation of her plan, giving a little bit more detail, showing off her memory erasing fruit, and then
someone Pandabill in the chat threw in on top of all the other problems that the Straw Hats were having. Luffy was hungry. That's actually accurate. He was hungry.
And the very end of that chapter actually was the return of Jinbei. Jinbei showed up to basically save Nami and Luffy from being burned. So that was the end of that chapter, and it was sort of a big reveal of like, oh, Jinbei's back. And you hadn't seen him. He had like a cameo at the start of that arc, showing up with Big Mom and having to spin the wheel, but we hadn't seen him since then. And then otherwise, it was basically the first time they had, you know, reunited with the Straw Hats since the Fishman Island arc, you know, years and years back. So it's a big moment there, and a lot happened in One Piece. It was I'm shocked that was the first thing. I was like, man, I feel like that was like more into 2016 or 2017 than that. I thought maybe we'd be even further back. But I guess it also shows how much has happened in One Piece in 2017. It feels like maybe there hasn't, because a large part of it has been like, run from Big Mom! But there was the entirety of the wedding. I think that showdown with Luffy and Sanji happened within this.
Well, and there was also the plotting and the alliance that they formed with Beige.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of just little pieces there, and then sort of just seeing them all kind of add up and add together. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it's been a particularly involved year for quite a few series on this list. This is one last thing, Nick. There was one other series that we were recapping in 2017, the very first start of 2017. Can you remember what series ended this year that we would have been discussing at the start of 2017?
Was it a jump start?
No.
No. Boruto?
No.
Are you sure we weren't covering Boruto at the start of the year?
We might have, but it wasn't in the first.
It wasn't in the first. It wasn't the first episode.
This one is one I completely forgot about. Do you want me to just tell you?
Yeah.
We were discussing Ruby at that time of the year.
Ah!
I completely forgotten we were still in the midst of discussing and recapping Ruby at that point, and that was in the first chapter.
God.
That was in the first issue of 2017. There was still some Ruby going on. Starry Jr.
I'm not even going to bother trying to guess what's happening. Because everything, it was like, what, 12 chapters long or some shit like that?
It wasn't very long, and they basically just recapped the like character introductions and then a very short mini arc, and that was it. So, I don't know. But when I saw Ruby was right at that point, I was like, I forgot that happened this year. Shit.
Absolute garbage manga, honestly.
Not great. So there we are. I think we'll hold off, though, on discussing which of those series we talked about was our favorite of the year until after we get to the end of our Superlative Awards. Because we've got quite a few to run through. And I feel just like the Academy Awards, we should save Best Manga of the Year for last, right? Like, we don't want to start off too quickly on that, right?
Yeah, keep people tuned in until 11:40 or whatever.
Exactly. But, like, how they also will put, like, Best Supporting Actress at the start or something like that to make sure people stay in. We're going to start with a big category here, Nick. We're going to start with the Best Villain of 2017. So I took recommendations for people who sent them in, but I've also periodically throughout the year been writing some of these names down. So some categories have a lot more nominees than others. It's mainly just because some are a bit harder to nail down and like whittle away. This one has quite a few people. There's some here I probably could have taken out, but I wanted to keep them on just for discussion topics and things like that. But Best Villain of 2017, Nick. The nominees I have were Mom, Isabella from The Promised Neverland, Tsukasa from Food Wars, Tsukasa from Dr. Stone, but that being Tsukasa Shishio, Big Mom from One Piece, Overhaul from My Hero Academia, Katakuri from One Piece, Shigaraki from My Hero Academia, and Ladros from Black Clover.
I'm glad the Ladros got a mention. I think that you gotta go with Big Mom.
Really? Okay.
I think that she had the most influence from beginning to end on the plot. We learned quite a bit about her from her backstory. We saw a lot of different sides of her, from her kind of default state to when she's on a rampage to when she's been on one of her hunger pangs so long that she is losing weight, and then she capped things off by entering her one-winged angel form with Prometheus and Zeus and Napoleon. I think it's got to be her.
I would argue another mom. I would argue Isabella from The Promised Neverland, because this was sort of the start of her really taking it to an extreme. This is like that first chapter I mentioned with Crone. It ends with like Mom closing the book in that like secret room she had, it being like, all right, it's time to set things in motion. And she had that really devastating scene where she just broke Emma's leg to keep her from running. She had the whole thing where she basically got Crone killed and then put the heroes at such a point that Norman had to sacrifice himself to stop it from happening. She had that huge victory where she succeeded in getting Norman shipped off. Now, we still don't know what happened specifically from there, but there was just that devastating defeat that happened, and there was like a chapter that just looked like the entirety of it was the kids having given up. Like they had just fallen, like completely given up all hope. And then we got that great, we did it in Weekly Manga Recap Lives, our bonus pod from last month, where we see what it was like for Mom when she was growing up as a kid in the school and how there were kids that she lost. Now, she tried to escape but had given up on that. And, you know, we also then found out that Ray was her kid. There were so many new elements that came in. And it's tough to remember this because Mom hasn't been in the series since then, really. We haven't seen her since the escape from Gracefield, so she's a little bit out of sight, out of mind. But going back through it, I really think regular Mom, not Big Mom, had a really a good claim to the best villain of this year. She was definitely a very innovative villain for Shonen Jump. She didn't have a big power set, but she was extremely competent and just so talented at keeping those kids under her finger for so long.
You make some good points, but I have a counterpoint. Isabella sold her orphan family off to be eaten. Big Mom actually ate her orphan family.
That is true. You know, we don't have to agree on this. This could be one, too, where we can just have our own separate opinions on that, which I think
there were some good villains this year in general. You know, a lot of the ones that people brought up, it's like, okay, yeah, you know, good. You know, I do like both Tsukasa's, and I'm glad that Tsukasa was the recommendation for Food Wars and not, you know, Azami. He didn't do anything this year.
There wasn't. That's actually something I think we forgot. There was, I believe, within this year also that miniature Shokugeki between Soma and Tsukasa within this year that happened, where they had, I think, the deer. Deer was the ingredient that they used. Because I believe that's how he came up as the villain. So, Shigaraki, people are saying, why not Shigaraki? Shigaraki was good, but Shigaraki was good at the end of the year.
Yeah,
and
he really only had the one moment, honestly.
He disappeared for a large portion otherwise.
He drifted off into the background in order to do villains' machinations.
Indeed. So, best hero then, Nick. If we already decided upon our best villains of 2017, who would be the best hero of 2017? And we got a few category options here. Got Emma from The Promised Neverland, Kirishima from My Hero Academia. Also from My Hero Academia was Mirio, Senku from Dr. Stone, Kohaku from Dr. Stone, and Kanata from Astro Lost in Space.
Tough choices.
There's a lot of tough ones in here. I'll tell you who my mind goes to. I go to Emma from The Promised Neverland, if only because she isn't pushed as being a hero in the same way that like Mirio and characters from My Hero Academia are, but she embodies that idea of a hero just as well, if not more than them, for her reluctance to want to allow anyone to suffer. You know, she's always like, let's get all the kids out and all those things. She just embodies that spirit of noble selflessness so well, and has just been such an admirable character all throughout this period.
I think that I'm torn between her and Kanata.
That would be my other big candidate.
Both for basically the exact same reasons. They're pretty much normal, but, you know, exceptionally talented kids who just have that purity to them where they want to save everyone, believe that they don't have to give up on friendship in order to ensure the survival of others. I do kind of lean towards Emma, though. I think that we saw more overall from her, just a lot of different sides of her. You know, Kanata, everything ended up kind of working out. He had to, you know, sacrifice his arm in order to save everyone. That was a really big heroic moment for him, and he ended up getting everyone home safely. But Emma, we saw her execute their escape plan well. We saw her resolve a situation by reaching out the hand of friendship to the old man and getting him on their side. But we also saw her fail. We saw her fail to protect, I think Jake and Monica were their names. And so a lot, and also, you know, saw her have to basically fail again early on in the year when Norman had to bail her out. So we've seen her to go through so much more than we saw from Kanata. And although, Astro Lost in Space you get less from it because it was like a bi-weekly release instead of every single week, there was still a lot that happened in it this year. But in The Promised Neverland, you have those very different things that happen to Emma, and yet she, continues to have that spirit to her. So,
nah, I completely understand. I think both of them are very worthy of it. I lean towards Emma, but I would 100% be behind giving it to Kanata as well. I think he had just a great of a year. This one's going to be an interesting one, Nick. This is the best speech of 2017. Now, I've pulled these up so we can kind of go through these. But
okay.
We have quite a few nominees for this. The first one being Ray's I'm a Human Being speech. This is from The Promised Neverland, chapter 32, back from March of this year. But this is where that big chapter comes in where he basically tries to set himself on fire.
Mm-hmm.
But he has this whole thing about, 12 years, I'm the feast that they've been waiting for, and I'm going to take them away from that tonight, right before the harvest they've been looking forward to. Don't think you can eat me. Don't think you can serve me. Food, merchandise, I don't give a crap. I'm a human being. It serves them right. And he talks about how he's like, this is the best way. I've been watching my family die all these years, and I used them. They were good kids. They were kind-hearted, and he has a glimpse of all the other kids that have been served up to this point, all the kids that have disappeared from Gracefield. And he finally ends it by saying, oh, I almost forgot, hands him a picture of their family that they've lost over the years, and a picture of Emma with Norman. And he says, it was a life I wanted to curse, but the time I spent with you and Norman was really fun. So thank you, Emma, and goodbye. And that's before he lights himself on fire at the end of it.
I'm not an animal. I'm a human being.
I think this had to have been after #Ray. So.
It was just after #Ray, I think. No, wait. I forget the exact order. I think it was just after, though.
Yeah, I think it was right after that, which maybe takes away a little bit from it. But that's a great speech. I enjoy that one greatly. Also a nominee is You're Not My Father from One Piece chapter 870. And it's Sanji after he rescued the Vinsmoke family. And Vinsmoke Judge says, why did you save us? He says, because my father would be sad. He'd be astonished that I turned into such a small man that I would laugh off the death of my own family. And I'll be damned if I lead a life where I can't stand tall and look him proudly in the eye. And it shows a visual of Zeph in that moment. And he says, Vinsmoke Sanji died at sea. That's what you wanted, right? So admit it, you are not my father, Vinsmoke Judge. It's a good moment. It was nice seeing Sanji stand up for Zeph in that way, and that's the motivation behind it. Why he rescued his family was more about the new family he has and not about the one he was thrown away from. We also have, and this one I don't think I need to remind you much of because we actually recapped it in our weekly Manga Recap lives, but this is the That's What Chivalry Is to Me speech from My Hero Academia, chapter 145. This is when Kirishima is watching, what's that guy's name?
Crimson Riot.
Crimson Riot, there you go. Crimson Riot gave a speech on what chivalry is, but he mentions how there's things scarier than death, and that is the pain that I couldn't prevent, and that's because he's seen that, that's why he keeps diving into danger. So the interviewer asks him, what is chivalry? And he says, it's a strong spirit we associate with men, but it ain't about gender. It ain't about confidence or being fearless. None of that. I'm a hero, so I protect people. And once that decision's been made, I gotta put my life on the line for it. It's about living without regret. That's what chivalry is to me. It's a powerful speech. It's a really good one.
Probably be better if it weren't from a character we had never met before that point, though.
It is. It also, though, it sort of helped give a little bit more context to what's his name? Kirishima, who we had known a little bit about. Next up here, we have from Black Clover, actually. This is a speech from Noelle. This is back in August 21st, 2017. This is Black Clover chapter 121. It's during the middle of her first fight, the one where she's going up against her brother that's not Nozel, whose name I don't remember quite now, to be honest. But he's talking about how she's ridiculously weak and there's no way a failure you could beat me. And she says, you're right. I have been weak. You've always been strong, solid. You probably can't understand how weak people feel. At this point, I don't care whether or not you acknowledge me, because I've been acknowledged by much greater people. Long ago, I was really afraid of your magic, Solid, but now it feels really flimsy.
I like how you said it's like the brother who's not Nozel, and then she says his name twice during the speech.
Yeah, I couldn't remember it.
That's how little of an impression he's left.
Yeah. But that was a great speech. That was
a great moment. Yeah.
Awesome moment for her. It's a short speech, but I think very effective. We have two more then. This one is from One Piece chapter 879. This is back in September 25th. And this is the chapter after Pedro had given up his life. And this is a speech from Jinbei. Everyone's very sad about it. And he says, our foes are the ones who want to cry at the moment. We cannot allow ourselves to lose control. And Brooke kind of shouts at him about how he's being cruel and unsentimental. He's like, my point is we cannot let our guard down now. That shoreline was a place of certain death. He understood what it represented and was determined to sacrifice himself whenever necessary. And with his act, Pedro achieved victory. There's still more to it than that. There's a bit more he continues on about how they can't let their guard down, and Pedro kind of shouting it out. But that was the big moment of him shouting about how Pedro achieved victory for them with his sacrifice, and he couldn't kind of let that go to waste. And our final one, this is a different sort of speech from this year. This is from Black Clover again. This is the most recent one. This is Black Clover 131 from October 30th. And this is when Zerks just single-handedly rips apart every single person in the Black Clover universe, where he's just like, you suck, fucking Fandral. You're like, you failed to beat a peasant. That's what makes you wrong about everything, right? And you, fluffy-headed snow woman, what did you do in the match? Nothing. I guess you'll still be a Magic Knight, though. And Kerr shows up and tries to talk to him, just like, shut up. It's not like you've actually got any skills. You're just a cardboard poser. You're the most hopeless type here. Hurry up and get out of the Magic Knights, loser. And he just systematically shits over everybody in the most violent way possible for like 4 straight pages. It's glorious. He even shits on himself too.
Yeah.
But I love how much he just poops on everyone else in the process. Even characters you didn't think he'd get that angry about. So those are our nominees for the best speech of 2017. What do you think wins out from that list?
Oh,
that's a tough one, and there's good speeches that weren't even included in there.
Let's go over these one more time, real quick. Just like
rapid fire. So there's "I'm the Human Being" speech from Ray from Promised Neverland. There's the "You're Not My Father" speech Sanji gave from One Piece. There's Crimson Riots. That's what chivalry is to me. There's Noel's "I've been acknowledged by much greater people" from Black Clover. There's with his act Pedro achieved victory from One Piece with Jinbei, and then Zerk's roasting everybody from Black Clover.
I'm torn between Ray and Zora, honestly. That's in terms of the ones like I guess I enjoy the most. Sanji's is also really, really good. But I think that it falls just short of those. People are a little bit upset that Mirio's capes are for wrapping up little girls didn't make it. That's not a speech. That's a quote.
It's also a weird quote. I know it's not like there's nothing weird about it, but it just sounds really kind of off when he's just like, capes are for wrapping up little girls. Like, what? No, they're not. Like, I guess symbolically they are, but could you make it not sound so kidnappy and shit? I love the Zerks one as well as Zora, technically. I do love that one, and I totally agree the Ray one is. I have an odd inkling, though. I kind of want to give mine to Noel's I've been acknowledged by much greater people. It's a very simple one, but it fits 100% that shonen attitude that I think I love so much, where it's like a real underdog kind of overcoming their issues and really giving a villain like a good fuck you kind of moment. It's a little bit hampered for the fact that it's like, man, Noelle really should be the protagonist of this series. I know it's not. I know it's not what the series is ultimately about, but goddamn, is she much more effective as a protagonist? But that was a really strong one too. I think that's what I'll give mine to. But the Zerks or Zora rather roasting everybody is a great number two. That is a fantastic sequence.
Okay.
All right. This I think will be a pretty quick one, but this is the best new power / technique in 2017. So anybody who introduced a new power, or if there were really good techniques. There weren't actually any that made the list this year, but anyone with really cool techniques as well could fall into this category. So our nominees here are Permeation, rather, which is Mirio's quirk, which is the whole phasing and pose-based redirection powers from My Hero Academia. The Red Thread of Fate from Vanessa from Black Clover. This was revealed earlier in the year, where she has like a black cat that is sort of fate incarnate on her shoulder. Manifest.
And now it just hangs out with her when she's drunk.
Yeah, it gets drunk with her, presumably. I don't know. Manifest, which is manifesting powers based on what he eats. That's Tamaki Amazaki, which is Sun Eater from My Hero Academia. I put this one on here thinking that maybe we'd see more of it, but that's the Fungus Magic from En Regard from Black Clover. He didn't really do a whole lot with it, but it was kind of cool for a moment. And then finally, Katakuri from One Piece and the Mochi Mochi fruit.
There's some good ones on there. I'm going to have to give it to Sun Eater, though.
Really? Okay.
Just instantly. I just really love the way that certain parts would manifest on his body. The swordfish coming in at the end, him having the chicken legs to use as talons and stuff, the clam armor that he would use. I thought it was a really cool variation on just the animal transformation ability.
Mm-hmm. It was a really effective way of kind of doing that and showing off a new kind of innovative power. If I were to pick the most innovative power 2017, I think that's what I would go with. But I think my favorite one is to go with Mochi Mochi fruit from Katakuri in One Piece. It's such a goofy kind of fruit idea, but it's one that has been made so effective by showing off what it can do, and particularly how effective it is against Luffy, how it can kind of duplicate everything Luffy could do with a little bit more to it as well, because he can kind of create things with it and shit like that as well. So I really enjoyed Katakuri. But I wanted to give proper thanks to Mirio, too, who managed to take the power of phasing, which I always thought was super lame, because the only other person who had it was Shadowcat. She sucked. But he managed to make it a really awesome power that was a lot of fun to follow this year. So big one to him. All right. Let's move on then to the best fight of 2017, Nick. Can't be a shonen manga without some good battles to it, right?
That's true.
We did not have many this year, but we had a couple really interesting ones. And we have one on this list that actually isn't even complete yet. But our nominees are Fat Gum and Kirishima versus Tengai and Rappa from My Hero Academia. We have Melodious versus Escanar from the Seven Deadly Sins. We have Luffy versus Katakuri from One Piece. And we have Diane, King, Gauther, Bond, and Hawk versus Chandler from the Seven Deadly Sins.
I feel as though if the Luffy Katakuri fight were done, I would say that one. But it's not over, and I really kind of need to see the ending to judge it in full for myself. Instead, then I'm going to give it to Meliodas versus Escanor. I remember when that group of chapters all came out, and we were just able to read it all in one go, and how just straight up, one-upping badass it was. And the fact that Meliodas actually got handed a loss like that by one of the other sins was really cool. Yeah,
I completely agree on that. That was a very awesome one. I think I'll personally give mine to the Fat Gum and Kirishima versus Tengai and Rappa fight. I just love the character focus that we got in there. But the Melodious versus Escanar one's really great. And even the Chandler versus fucking everyone else fight was pretty good as well. There were some really good fights from Seven Deadly Sins this year. So I think both really qualify on that. But I think I also ultimately agree with you, too. If Luffy versus Katakuri was done, it would probably be that one. That's been a great fight thus far. All right, this is one I'm pretty excited about. Best new character of 2017, Nick.
Zora.
Well, we have quite a few.
Zora.
Hold on, Nick. We have quite a few nominees. There's Mirio from My Hero Academia. There's Chrome from Dr. Stone. There's Mario Leona from Black Clover. I put her in before she got annoying. There is quote-unquote Zerx Lugner from Black Clover. Rindo from Food Wars, because she did appear before this, but this was
she's not a new character.
All right, you can take her out then. She's also my best, most improved, but I thought that she had been mostly used this year. Fat Gum from My Hero Academia, and Sonju from The Promised Neverland.
Oh, the spear guy, right?
Yes.
Zora. Fake Zerk Zora.
Yeah, I think he ultimately wins out. I think there was some really, really good characters that we got this year. I think Chrome is fantastic. Mirio is amazing.
And we keep in mind that technically the entire casts of We Never Learn and Dr. Stone are new characters for this year. So,
yeah. All right. So now we're going to move to one. This is going to be a tough one for our audience. You guys are actually going to have to kind of follow along with us. We're going to talk about the best 2-page spreads of 2017. And there are a shit ton of these. Technically, the first one isn't even a 2-page spread exactly. It takes up part of 2 pages, but it's not like a full focus 2-page. But we're going to give you guys the chapters, or not the chapters, but the issues of Jump that these came in. So if you want to check these out yourself, you definitely can. But there are a lot of really good 2-page spreads to kind of focus on this year. So our first one is the first chapter of 2017 for One Piece, and that is from January 9th issue, Brooks Standing Up to Big Mom. What'd you think of this one, Nick?
I really love it. It's, I'm a real sucker for the, hero small in the foreground, villain big in the background. So it looks like they're facing out something monstrous. And Big Mom just looks really cool with Prometheus and Zeus surrounding her and Brooks standing ready to face her with his sword cane ready to go.
It was a good shot. We hadn't gotten a tremendous amount of Brook to that point. We haven't had a whole lot about him since then either, but it is a really effective scene, I think, for both of them. I enjoy that one a lot. Our next option is Crone's Final Moment. This is from Promised Neverland from the January 23rd issue of Shonen Jump. This is basically that full-page spread that's just pure blackness with like a claw coming to grab her as she just kind of smiles in the foreground, having realized that she had lost everything at this point. It was sort of the symbolic shot that she was going to be killed.
Mm-hmm.
What'd you think of that one, Nick?
It's a nice shot. It almost kind of feels as though it shouldn't be 2 pages, if you get what I mean. Like, it feels like it would be just as effective if it were just a 1 full-page spread. So, I mean, it looks good. Mm-hmm. But I really feel as though I was like, I don't know. It's not quite as eye-catching, I guess, as some of the others that we've got.
That's fair. That's fair. Then let's move on to our next one. This is from the February 27th issue, the Food Wars Summit. This is when Erina relinquishes the 10th seat on the Council of 10. This is one we actually recapped when we did our weekly manga recap lives. But this is a pretty big moment. This is a huge moment for Erina in particular, where she throws off kind of the shackles, everything, gets on her like arrogant pose, but this time it's for her being a noble hero. And
heroic arrogant pose.
Yes, exactly. And it was also, though, it was very important because it's sort of the first time we had seen her when she was going to be interacting with her father in any way that wasn't her being like a shrinking violet in any way. This was her kind of boldly saying, "Fuck you, I'm going to fight against you."
She just like suddenly gets shaves her hair down.
She's like, "Fuck you, Dad." Yeah, shaves off part of the hair.
I don't honestly really care for this category. It's a nice visual, but it's not really a 2-page spread in my opinion.
Okay.
So
that's fair enough. We'll move on then. This is from the March 13th issue of Dr. Stone. This is when the first stone bird is freed. They finally get to use it on something. We see a bird flying into the air as Senku and Taiju, I believe was his name. It's been so fucking long since he's been in the series.
It's been a really long time since seeing Yuzuriha and Tsukasa showed up at all.
Yeah, but it's their first chance of using the solvent and it freeing a bird that flies into the air.
I like it, but there are 2 other Dr. Stone images that are nominated here that I liked better.
Mm-hmm. And I can understand that one. It's a solid one, but yeah, there's a lot of them in here at this point. So we'll move on then. This is from the May 8th issue of Food Wars. It's when Soma's soba is judged, and the judges have this reaction to it that sends them back to what it would be like to be at like a festival in a big two-page spread.
I love it. I think it's very pretty, and I like just the kind of innocent joy that's portrayed in it, which is very different from a lot of the stuff that Soma feeds people.
Yeah, it wasn't about making anything sexual or anything else like that. This was just a series that it's like, hey, this is really good.
And An's gotten a lot of those this year, considering that she was the one who was trying everyone's dishes. Let's see, she was naked for a magic performance. She had her boobs grown really big. So just a simple like, oh, the three friends are wearing kimonos and going out to have fun at the festival together is so much. It's a very nice change of pace.
Yeah, I like that one quite a lot. Moving on then to a My Hero Academia one. This is from the May 29th issue. This is when Deku and Kirishima burst through a wall. It's been I forget what his name was. Mover person dude was rearranging all the facility.
Mimic.
To keep them from getting anywhere. But then Deku and Kirishima just burst through the wall and kind of like a double combo attack of like Deku usually shoot style and Kirishima using the red gun turret, and they kind of burst through it. It's not a perfect 2-page spread, kind of like 1.5, and then the rest of it's sort of their follow-ups through it. But what'd you think of this one, Nick?
I think it's too squished together.
Okay. Not a huge fan of it.
It's a little too plain looking, honestly.
I think it's a big moment at the time. It probably doesn't stand up maybe to everything else when there's so many grand 2-page spreads throughout this, especially like later on. There's another My Hero moment that stands up a little bit more, but I thought it was a pretty cool moment, particularly this is before we had gotten all the Kirishima stuff too. So, there's a lot going on there, but let's move on into another Food Wars one. This is from the June 19th issue of Food Wars. This is Rindo's Ready to Cook. This is the last page, basically, of the chapter. They had done all the Tsukasa stuff and everything else like that, so that was all finished up. But we got this one shot of Rindo, amongst a couple other things. We also saw Megashima kind of getting ready. But we saw Rindo brandishing a knife, eyes going mad, like she was a fucking berserk fucking barbarian, which I guess is how she's sort of been portrayed and things like that.
That's yeah.
But what'd you think of that one, Nick?
I really like the way that Rindo looks. When just examined, though, as a 2-page spread, I think that it doesn't hold up quite as well against the very stiff competition that we've got as a pure visual. And I still maintain to this day that I wish that instead of cooking that crocodile, that she just have it like sit on her shoulder and watch her. Because I think that it looks like too adorable and it kind of fits her too well.
Nah, I can understand that.
Although I did really like where she was just like, "Hey, come back here," and chased it in the next chapter. So
it's a solid one. All right, we'll move on then. This is My Hero Academia, chapter 145 from the July 17th issue. This is after Kirishima had his entire little backstory given. We had Fat Gum punching through Rappa and Tengen in a big display at the very end of the chapter. What did you think of this one, Nick?
I know that you liked it a lot more than I did at the time. I think even at the time I was just like, it's kind of hard to make stuff out. There's a lot of speed lines and impact stuff, and it's a cool pose, but it's a little bit too busy to see everything. So it's not one of my favorites personally. I definitely see the appeal, though.
It's a very good action chapter or action moment. It's probably not the most clear. I'll say from here on in, the last three are probably, I think, what I would consider to be some of the biggest nominees for this. So there's the tough ones here. We're going to move on then to July 17th for the same issue as that previous one. This is from Dr. Stone. And this is Senku explaining the history of science to Chrome, where he gives him this sort of big overview in a 2-page spread that includes no dialogue whatsoever. So what did you think of this one, Nick?
It's really cool, and I love the way that you can see Chrome reacting to everything and the different ways that he, is taking everything in, first in kind of shock and disbelief, and then eventually this sad realization that all of this technology has been lost as a result of what happened. Yeah.
It's a solid one. I love the fact that, as you said, it's done without any dialogue or anything else like that. I think that's just an incredibly sort of effective scene. Again, from Dr. Stone, this is a couple months, though, later. This is Senku I should say September 4th issue of Dr. Stone is a Senku brings light into the Stone Age for the first time, or the Stone World, I should say.
I love the shadows, the tremendous contrast because of the light shining in their faces.
Yes, this is one like a natural 2-page spread. There's nothing else on this image except this entire shot, and it's all basically in darkness outside of this light shining and what it illuminates on our two characters here. This is a great shot. And our final nominee then for this is
all right. Who nominated this? Who nominated this?
This is from the Promised Neverland, September 18th issue of it. This is the what if, I guess, image of Emma sort of imagining what it would be like if all the Gracefield kids didn't have that shit and they could just live naturally. It's sort of, you get to see them in casual attire. And
okay, that's the one we were talking about. I thought that it was the one where they jump in the fucking bath.
No.
Because it says natural, and I was like, what, like au natural?
No, sorry. I couldn't think of like an easy way to explain it perfectly. But yeah, no, it's the 2-page spread of all the kids in natural clothing in an environment where they weren't raised in a fucking farm and shit.
Jesus Christ, Chris.
Hey, you were the one who decided to take it that way.
I stopped at the first 2-page spread I came across, and I was like, what, really? Who the fuck nominated that one?
No, it is for the image of all the kids in, a casual home environment. And we get to see little glimpses of also what these kids' personality is like based on maybe what they're doing. We see some playing music, some drawing, some of them are in like sports attire. It just kind of gives the kids who
hashtag Ray tweeting.
Yeah, he's writing like my manifesto, listening to my indie rock music, the kind that you've never heard of before. Once you have, I'm done listening to it. But yeah, those are all of our nominees. There's a ton here, but this is a hard category to whittle down just because it's a very subjective one. I put down just about every 2-page spread we kind of stopped and had some discussion on, or at least admired at some point throughout the year. So what would be your favorite of this group?
It's going to be real tough. I almost want to give it to the One Piece one with Brooke standing off against Big Mom. But again, it's not a true 2-page spread, so I kind of take points off for that. So it's between the Food Wars Festival one and the 2 Dr. Stone ones. That's really hard for me. I think that it's between the Food Wars and the Senku Bringing Light one. And honestly, I don't really think I can pick between those two.
That's fair enough. I think I'm going to go with Senku explaining the history of science to Chrome. It's just such an effective way of capturing so much in so little. No need for dialogue or anything like that. Just expressions of somebody seeing these visuals explained to him. And I love the way it kind of is told, the way it comes across. But I also really love the Gracefield shot too. I think those are both really strong moments. And I love the Rappa Fat Gum one as well, but I'm gonna give it to that Senku explains the world of science to Chrome. All right, we're gonna move on. We have just a few categories left. Let's do the best twist of 2017, Nick. The best twist. We've got a couple nominees here. The first we have, spoilers for anybody who's listening, just to be fair. The first is Chrome is killed, Nick, from the Promised Neverland. This was a big twist at the time. We didn't expect her to die or anything else at that point.
Not that early, no.
Antagonist, and she got offed pretty quickly. We have then Capone is working against Big Mom. This was a twist at the time. We had no idea that Capone was working against her in any way. We thought he had just aligned himself rather with an emperor. This is something that had been established. Is something the Supernovas were doing at that point when we had that whole group that started working for. I want to call him Yondu. I know that's not his name, but I'm blanking on it at the moment. But there was that whole alliance there.
And there was also the hints of people sneaking around the Totland.
Yes. August is the Emperor's Child. This is from Fairy Tale. This was actually a very good twist in our minds when it was all seemed to be leading up to be like, Lacarde is the Emperor's kid. And then he's just like, you're not my fucking kid. And it turns out August was all along. And why would the Emperor not know his own son, Nick? Or not hug his own child, or some shit like that. I don't remember the fuck.
Why did the Emperor not love his own son?
It's because he didn't know.
What?
Daddy? We have Ray burns himself alive for the Promised Neverland, chapter 32. This was a crazy moment at the time. None of us had any idea how to react to that chapter. Obviously, hashtag...
None of us meaning Chris.
You did not. I think if you go back to that episode, you were pretty shocked as well. It was a crazy moment at the time when we did not have much of an idea how to react to it. And then finally, that Mother Caramel was a slave trader from One Piece. And this is all in the Big Mom flashback. And it turns out like, oh, Big Mom's like motherly figure wasn't noble at all. She was a fucking child trafficker. That's kind of fucked up.
Honestly, that one probably had the least impact for me out of all of those. I think that the Ray one is kind of undercut by the fact that it was followed up with actually another twist that's not on there, which was that Emma and everybody had a plan the whole time in order to save them, and nope, they stopped Ray from killing himself. Let's see, it's Crone. I'm gonna have to go with Crone, I think, though. I think just because she was set up and it looked like she was going to be this kind of ongoing minor villain, and then she was just like brutally killed off so quickly.
Yeah, no, I understand. I think I'm going to give mine to August as the Emperor's son. That was one of the few times I was like, wow, Fairy Tail did an effective twist that felt natural and didn't feel like it was just bullshit pulled out at the last moment. It was a really good twist in my mind.
Credit where credit is due.
Indeed. We have 2 categories left here then. We're going to go with most improved character here. So our most improved character of 2017, we have Big Mom from One Piece, Kirishima from My Hero Academia, Rindo from Food Wars, Kirisu Sensei from We Never Learn, Uraraka Takamoto from We Never Learn, and then Gauther from Seven Deadly Sins. That's a tough list to me. There's, to note, we have 2 characters from We Never Learn on there, but both of whom started off being just fucking death characters we hated to being ones we enjoyed a lot more. I think Uraraka significantly more than Kirisu Senpai.
Uraraka's from My Hero.
Right. I wrote her name down wrong.
Nobody thinks that she's the most improved of 2017, sadly. Most underutilized of 2017.
Most improved, from doing nothing to doing slightly more than nothing.
She put Yusaki's arm behind his back.
Yeah,
that's something.
She really saved the day.
If we're looking at it purely in terms of how they began 2017 to where they are now, then first off, I'm going to say Rindo was always awesome. She just got increasingly awesome after that point. So for me, it's going to be between Kirishima and Gauther. I think that I'm going to end up giving it to Gauther because he was one that I specifically noted was someone that I thought was terribly done when we did our big catch-up on the Seven Deadly Sins, and then we got all of his backstory and he got his memories back and became a completely different character. Kirishima definitely followed along the, kind of stepping into the spotlight kind of aspect of things, but you could see that he was on the verge of doing that, when he was involved in the effort to save Bakugo. He got a little bit of attention in the provisional hero license exam. He did have his big coming out party in this year. But in terms of a character was bad and now they're good, I think that I'm going to go with Gauther.
I think I agree with you. Gauther, I think, really sits at. I think Takamoto was a good secondary. She started this year in a place where we both hated her, and I think is now. I think you've said like you want her.
She's best girl.
She's best girl at this point, so I think she deserves definitely a special mention for that. But I think I will go with Gauther, just in the case of being someone who was hated to somebody who now I think we both really enjoy. In that regard. And our final category of the regular Superlative Awards is the biggest what the fuck moment of 2017, Nick.
And there were a couple.
We only have a couple on here that I wrote down, so feel free to throw your own in there if you feel that it's not being mentioned here. I have 2 from Fairy Tail. Natsu defeats Zeref just by punching him really hard from Fairy Tail Chapter 536. And then Natsu defeated the Apocalypse Dragon by punching him even more really hard from Fairy Tail Chapter 444. I have Ray burns himself alive from Chapter 32 of Promised Neverland. And then I think this has to be the hands-down favorite. Mars reveals he is going to mind control the Diamond Kingdom King from Black Clover Chapter 101.
Oh, man. I guess that we should add some others just as kind of like honorable mentions, I guess. Big Mom eats her family, or is implied to eat her family. That was a big one. The various different "are you fucking kidding me" moments from We Never Learn. The ridiculous excuses to land in fan servicey situations, or the absurd misconceptions that occur in order to land Yuiga in hot water. And, of course, also the black holes inside of their butts that constantly give them wedgies.
That is true. There were some good ones in there.
Let's see here. Real.
I didn't put him on here. I was
destroyed
angry.
his own crystal. Are you fucking kidding me? Yeah, I definitely think it's going to be... I believe that you titled the episode "A Noble Brainwashing" or something like that.
It really was just a shocking moment when you're just like, wait, hold on. This dude's gonna brainwash the king of his kingdom, just take away his like free will, and everyone's on board with this? Everyone's like,
literally
great plan.
Everyone thinks that this is the right thing to do.
Yeah, like they're like morally like, yeah, absolutely, go with this. No one had like a secondary thought to be like, I'm not 100% sure on this. And this
Do you think when they did that Ladros was looking around like, oh, and I thought I was a crazy psychopath. Oh, I guess I'll just go along with it. They don't kill me and bury my body out in the desert.
Yeah, that'd be pretty unfortunate, don't you know? So with that, that's all the Superlative Awards of 2017. So thank you to everybody who gave us suggestions for that or followed along. But let's finish this up. Let's wrap this up then with the big award for 2017. What was the best manga of 2017, Nick? Of the series you recap, what was the best? What had the best year?
Before we get into this, I'm going to go over our weekly decisions on what was the best manga, who was the MVP.
Okay.
The front runner for both of us in terms of individual chapters that we liked was Dr. Stone. You picked it as your favorite series 14 times, and I picked it 10 times. The runner-up for both of us was My Hero Academia. You picked it 10 times, and I picked it 8 times. I also picked The Promised Neverland 8 times. Some random ones in here. Let's see. You picked, Astra and Black Clover and Food Wars and Seven Deadly Sins twice each. I picked Boruto once.
What chapter was that?
I don't know. We Never Learn, you picked 4 times, and I picked it once. Let me see here. Shudan, I picked twice out of the 3 chapters we got.
You and Jeff, you can high five each other all the way to its cancellation in a couple weeks.
It's basically canceled in the next issue, from what I understand. In terms of MVPs, you picked My Hero Academia and Food Wars 9 times each. One Piece 8 times. I picked One Piece 13 times. Promised Neverland 8 times. Black Clover, Dr. Stone, and Food Wars 6 times each. So there you go.
Was there individuals on that to note?
I kept track of everyone who got multiple selections. So Mirio is the king with 7 different selections between the 2 of us. Emma had 6. Jinbei, Senku, and Zora all had 4. And there was a random one. Let me make sure I have the specific wording on this correct. Hang on. Let me do a quick little edit find. Oops. God damn it. Okay, so on July 26th, you said, Elfman. I don't know. I guess Rill? Which is an even stranger selection than Elfman. The fact that you picked Rill as the MVP and then we ended up hating him.
Elfman, I don't know, Will. That is a great suggestion. All right, yeah, I can dig that. All right, so if I were to give a MVP or series for 2017, I think the answers there kind of nailed it. I think this was the year for Dr. Stone for me. This was such a great series. We got it within this year, but Dr. Stone was just such an entertaining series all the way through. It's changed so much too. It's weird to think that for a long time, like it was just Taiju and Senku, and then later on Yuzuriya and Tsukasa. But now it's this whole village and everything like that. I don't know. It's just been a fantastic series. It's been such a joy to read through and experience. I absolutely adore it.
I have a lot of fun with our current lineup. Not having Fairy Tail and having Black Clover instead is actually, I think, for the weekly discussions, probably an upgrade, because Black Clover still has the capacity to surprise us. I guess is the way that I can put it. We're unfortunately going to be losing Astra after this next week because the last chapter has already come out. So that one's going to be missed. But between everything else, like, Dr. Stone and Food Wars and My Hero and One Piece and Seven Deadly Sins and We Never Learn and Promised Neverland, those are all some series that I really, really like discussing every single week. If we had done this in July instead of now, Promised Neverland would win this hands down. It had a really, really good first half of the year. In terms of the consistency, though, even though it's gone back up to good since then, the 5 months in between where they were just wandering through the forest and nothing really was catching us or gripping us, it really hurts it in my eyes. So I'm also going to say Dr. Stone, purely in terms of almost every single week. And we've had it for, over 40 chapters at this point. So a good majority of the year we had it. It was good.
Yes.
I cannot think of like a single chapter of the series that I was disappointed with. It was constantly surprising us and going in directions that defied expectations, defied seemingly setups that it was putting in place for the future in order to go in a different direction and resolve them quickly. So I'm going with Dr. Stone.
I totally understand. Yeah, it's a great one. We didn't plan this ahead of time, but I figure why not just ask? 2017 was meant to be the year of Sanji. If you were to pick an MVP that stood out the most of 2017, who would you say it was? Who do you think had the best year?
I'm going to go do the series by series.
Okay. No, that's actually a pretty good way of doing it.
It's Kanata from Astra, because of course it is.
Yeah.
Black Clover and Zora.
Oh, that's not even a
pretty
question.
easily. I don't know who I would pick for Boruto.
I wouldn't even count Boruto. It had 7 chapters this year.
Dr. Stone was more of a kind of a team effort, but I think that you have to go with Chrome out of all of them.
I would go with Senku, personally.
Senku definitely was a good protagonist, though.
Yeah.
We don't have to worry about Fairy Tail because it's over. That's my excuse for not naming a good character in Fairy Tail.
Selfman. Wait, no, hold on, Rel.
Hang on. Food Wars. It's a little bit tougher, I think.
If she had won, I would want to give it to Megumi, but she didn't, so I don't know.
I think I got to go with Arena, and I'm not very happy with that selection.
It's
because
tough. I think there's several characters that had moments, but none of them had. I'd want to give it to Rindo, but she didn't do anything for the first half of the year. And I'd want to give it to Saito, but he only showed up in the last 3 months. I want to give it to, so-and-so, but they weren't there. If Megumi had won, I'd give it to her, but she didn't. So I think I'm going to say, yeah, I agree with Arena, but it sucks because she hasn't done anything at the tail end of the year.
My Hero Academia, it's Kirishima, obviously. One Piece.
I would put at least an argument in for Mirio. Mirio had a really good year. for being introduced at the start of it to then kind of at the end of it having those big emotional moments with Sir Night-Eye, I think I'd actually give mine to Mirio.
One Piece, despite this still being Sanji's arc, it was Jinbei.
Yeah, I could see that definitely.
At the beginning of the year, he breaks everyone out of prison, and he has had so many great moments throughout the entire course of the year. His confrontation with Big Mom, where he throws off his allegiance, she basically wants to take his soul, and he's not scared of her. He throws in with the Straw Hats and all but in name officially joins them, and then maintains leadership and calmness over the crew as they're escaping, including surfing with the fucking ship.
I was going to mention that. It's probably maybe a moment I should have brought up at some point during this list, but yeah, him revealing this helmsman talent and like how that could be used in an effective way was such an awesome visual.
So it was the year of Jinbei in One Piece. Seven Deadly Sins, I guess Elizabeth. Because remember, he came back, and she has suddenly gotten much more involved in the goings-on of the series since then.
Yeah, I can see that.
Promised Neverland is kind of tough. I want to kind of just give it to Ray, just because.
That we've had so much fun with him.
How can it be anyone else besides #Ray?
He's like, if I don't get this award, I'll just die.
But in reality, if we're going off of official characters, then I think it's got to be Emma, for the same reason that she was, best hero. And I think for We Never Learn, it's going to be Iruka.
Yeah.
So there you go. If I had to pick a single character out of all of them, I think that I would go with Kirishima or Mirio. But that's how I would break it down series by series.
Yeah. No, I could definitely see that. I think Mirio, if I had to pick one, I'd probably give it to him, just in terms of overall. As you mentioned, he was also the one we gave the most recommendations to between us. But yeah, I think it was a strong year for quite a lot of series, a lot of fun, and I don't know. It's a good collection there. 2017 wrapped up in the books, but we had a lot of fun with it. So.
Oh, and someone did point out, and this is actually a good point. How about Takumi for Food Wars? That's pretty good. Actually, he stepped into main character status too.
Fuck him. Still don't get that. He did a 4-cheese pizza as his big fucking one-upsmanship. I'm not letting that go. All right, that's gonna do it then.
Yeah.
Let's wrap this up.
It was a fun 2017, and I hope that 2018 is even better. So I think that next week we'll be ready to go with Komi-san wa Komyusho desu. That'll be a different kind of series.
Yeah. Before we get to our wrap up, though, I did want to call out quite a few new patrons that we have. So I want to give a special thanks, by the way, to Zach Ranger, to August Rue, Johan Larson, Cool Surfer, Arissa, and Nah4. Thank you all for being patrons. It is greatly appreciated. It's a fist bump. Oh, and I gotta do that better. Well, bam! That was me punching you, actually.
Don't hurt them.
Yeah,
Jeez.
I'm like, oh! But no, thank you very much for all you guys. It has been a very interesting year in terms of the growth of this podcast and getting some really interesting stuff out of that. But it has also been quite a tumultuous one as well, particularly at the end of the year when Patreon had all that stuff going on and everything else like that. There's so much YouTube drama and things like that going on nowadays. It is greatly appreciated that we're able to...
Even in the past 24 hours, in fact.
Yes. It is greatly appreciated that we're able to have such an awesome supportive audience who are able to help us to make this show a success and to keep improving upon it. We have a lot of plans, I think, in 2018, a lot of big things that we want to do, and hopefully we're going to be able to live up to everyone's expectation and promises and make 2018 the year of Weekly Manga Recap. Fuck the year of Sanji. It's going to be the year of us. God damn it.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us here on Weekly Manga Recap. We record the show on smashcast.tv/RoloT and twitch.tv/RoloT, normally about 7 Eastern on Wednesdays. Sometimes things change. Sometimes things go wrong, like Nick's computer refusing to recognize Nick's microphone for 45 minutes. When that kind of stuff happens, you can stay tuned to all of our goings on and where we're going to be moving the show to by following us on Twitter. The official podcast account is at WMR Podcast, and your hosts are at Rolo T. And now I am at Nik F Time, because I have changed my online handle. That's NIKFTIME if you're not following me currently.
In the nick of time.
Exactly. You can check out our past episodes on weeklymangarecap.podbean.com, as well as on YouTube and iTunes. And if you check us out on those latter two, be sure to leave a comment, a rating, and subscribe to us. Help us out in the algorithm to become king of the hobby section and conquer our rivals, the woodworking podcasts.
They've been saying mean, disparaging things about all of you and your mothers as well. I think we really need to make a strong statement about them. 2018 is the year we no longer allow the woodworkers to operate unopposed. We have to finally put a stop to these guys.
And if you're interested in all the fun stuff we've got available on our Patreon, you can check us out on patreon.com/weeklymangarecap. We did a Weekly Manga Recap Lives recently, and this month will be a big radio play special.
Yes, I'm super excited for this. We're putting some finishing touches on some parts of it, but it is going to be... I think we can announce what it's going to be as well. Might as well, right?
I know, I don't want to jinx it.
That is true. I'm so confident in this. I think we'll just tease it out there. It is going to be a radio play. It's not going to be... the same way that the previous one was, where it was about Nick. This is actually going to be sort of like in universe within some of the series we recap, and another holiday themed bonus radio play. And I'm super excited for it. We got a lot of great stuff coming out for that, so stay tuned for that. We'll have that out as soon as we can, and it is going to be a ton of fun. And it's not active yet, but I'm going to make it active soon. We're going to have an ultimate Patreon tier coming up soon, and part of that will be gaining access to things like scripts for any radio plays and things like that we do. So in addition to notes that we take from our weekly recaps, you'll also get access to our scripts, so it can give you a little bit more of an insight into our writing process. Hopefully by the time this episode's out on YouTube and things like that, that tier will be active up on Patreon as well. So if you want to take a look at that, you absolutely can.
And finally, thanks Steve Mann and Infamous Planner for your help in making the podcast what it is. That's going to do it for the first episode of 2018. We will see you guys next week.
Yes. Goodbye, everybody.